Hello, everyone. How are you? Hope you're having an incredible day, and may peace be upon you. Welcome to the show. It takes courage. With me, your host, Dr. Izdihar Jamil, and I love helping leaders and entrepreneurs to solidify the position as the go-to experts in their field so that they can be seen, heard, and chosen. And today, I have very special guests. They're actually living in my community who are the realtors from Team Tackney. And I've met them a few years ago when my husband and I was looking for our home here in this area. And I've also spoken to them a couple of times. Actually met Jeff, who's one of the guests today on the school run. He was literally standing outside of the gate at the curb waiting for his child. So just want to welcome the realtors from Team Tackney. I have Jeff and Jen Tackney and also Sean. Hi, everybody. Can everybody say hi?
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you so much for coming in the show. What a pleasure to have my really, neighbors, right? It's hard sometimes, like you see people from outside, but welcome, Jen, Jeff, and also Sean to the show.
Thank you. We're glad to be here.
Thank you so much. And today we're going to be talking about the simplest way to choose the best realtors. So before that, I just want to quickly jump in and get to know each of you very quickly. So Jen, why don't you give us a quick heads up about yourself and kind of a little bit of your story?
Yes. So I have been a realtor licensed since 2003. I started in the business because I had been going to junior college and waiting tables and struggling to pay bills. And my dad said, you need to get a real job. So my real job was in mortgage. And it was like, a fish in water. I just took to the industry really well and have had the opportunity to help now hundreds of people find and sell their homes.
Wonderful. So you just literally started from your dad, kind of being a dad, right? You got to figure things out. You got to figure things out. On you were in junior college that time, so around
I was,
19, 20, kind of that
2000, age? I was 19, 20, so it was 2001. I was in my early 20s. At that time.
Right. Way to like grow up, right, Jan? Suddenly you have to grow up all of a sudden, which is like hard for parents to do as well because you always want to take care of your child. But I would say your dad did a great job in that.
It was
his genius coming in there. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jen. So Jeff, give us a little bit of heads up about you and your story.
Yeah, so as far as real estate, how I got into it, I had a friend of mine that was he was buying houses and fixing them up and selling them, flipping houses, and we were talking one day, and he was mentioning how he had all these agents that he had to communicate with doing so, and I said, hey, I should get my license, and you'd have one person to talk to. So he said, go get your license. So I did, and I walked into my first broker's office and interviewed and told him I had 8 listings. And he said, come on aboard. And so that's how I started, was selling those flipped homes. Made every mistake possible in those first 6 months, I think, that you can make in real estate. But then went on from there to flip, be involved in over 200 flips. And then that same investor came back after I started a construction company, and asked if I can go back to work with him, and then flipped some more homes. And then we decided to switch our business model a few years back and be of service to our community, the community we both live in now. And so that was in 2014. And since from then to now, we've had the joy and the pleasure and the privilege of serving, a couple hundred families in this area buy and sell homes. So that's a little.
Wow. And I think, like George, one of the things you mentioned, you kind of put yourself forward, right? Rather than, just kind of waiting. You're like, hey, maybe I should get my license and go for this. And then you went to the realtor's office. Hey, I've got 8 listings. It's kind of like you got to put yourself forward if you want to have the opportunities, because a lot of the people, myself included, I'm just like, okay, like, hey, I'm here, but you don't do anything. You just kind of stay there, or it's kind of the thing about expressing yourself, like the courage to kind of put yourself out there. Sure, he can say, I know, George, you this and that, but still it's the courage to put yourself forward there, and also being of service. So amazing job, Jeff. So I want to say a quick hello to Sean. Sean, let's give a quick hello and a quick rundown of your story.
Hi, good morning. So born and raised in Orange County, started out in the real estate industry through title insurance, which is an important part of the business nowadays too, and moved into sales. One of the most important things through sales for me was always the service portion of it and the relationships that I got to build. And there's no closer way to build a relationship with somebody and be of service than as a realtor and helping them in their purchase, whether it be a first time, second time, or more. So being in the industry and seeing the relationships you get to build, I was, introduced to Jeff at their Jingle Jam event a couple years ago. And it was, it was so great meeting them and seeing the relationship they have with their team and everybody else as well in the community, that, it was a no-brainer for me to join the team.
Wonderful. And it's kind of this relationship, right, Sean? It's all about, I think, like, if people understand business, the biggest currency in business is relationship and connection, and obviously trust. And then once you have that, like, a lot of things gets to moved around because of that kind of trinity, and the rest will follow, whether it's the money, whether it's the contacts, whether it's the opportunities. So, beautiful. And, having people buying a home here in Orange County, it's like, I don't know what the market rate is now, but I'm assuming it's around 800K around our area. It is a lot of money. Like on other states, you can probably buy 5 houses, and have those kind of that. But absolutely, thank you so much, Sean. So Sean, I'm gonna put you in the backstage for a moment while I kind of spotlight Jeff and Jen, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, Sean?
Sounds good.
So stay there and don't move, okay? So Jeff and Jen, let's come back to you, and kind of like, I wanted to know, now we know a little bit about your story. So now you've dealt with a lot of times, whether it's in the buyer or the seller. So I wanted to kind of like give us a couple of tips when people, whether it's first time buyers, especially when they want to come in, what are the things they can look for when they want to choose a realtor? So maybe Jen, you can take a seller, and Jeff, you can take a buyer, or vice versa. So yeah, so what would be your tips in that?
Yeah, so as far as a buyer coming into the market, I think it's very important to have someone who is educated. So the realtor of choice needs to have done 10 to 20 transactions. And I think it's also important that that's not 10 to 20 transactions over 10 years. That's at least, you're kind of what they consider a top producing real estate agent does on average about 25 transactions a year. So it's nice to have someone that has that experience, because then, just like anything else, there can be proactive, and if something comes up, it may have been something that the realtor experienced before, so they're more able to guide you through the process. So there are inspections that need to happen on the home. And right now in our community, our sewer lines were put in place in 1960. So one of the things that we're highly suggesting for buyers, and it absolutely must do if there's a big tree in the front yard, but even if there's not, we're suggesting an added inspection of a sewer line scope, because that is such a high cost once you're in escrow. Could be, on the low end. I mean, Jeff, as he's also a general contractor, but when we've sold homes that have replaced it, it's been $15,000 on the high end. And if you just need a liner, it's about $3,500. So we don't want a first-time new home buyer getting into a home and then incurring this huge expense that's not covered by their homeowner's insurance. So very, very important when you're choosing the realtor that they have that long time, that long-term thought process of, this is a huge investment. We want to make sure that things like the roof, plumbing, all of that is, in good condition. And if there are any issues, it can be covered by a home warranty. So to limit these huge out-of-pocket expenses. And that's not even, hey, do you love the neighborhood? How are the schools? That's not even the fun part, right? I mean,
Yes.
Yeah. So
yeah, because my neighbor, he had exactly you said, the sewage, like he had issues that, like, flushing the toilet, taking a shower, it kind of like get blocked. So he literally ended up like digging his front yard, kind of like to repiping, however you want to call it, towards the storage.
Yes.
And then he's like, since I'm digging my front yard, I might as well add another, extend my property. I'm like, okay, fantastic, Jared. But that is the thing. What you pointed out, Jan, is kind of having a realtor that has an understanding of the area or the community or the home that they are wanting to sell when it was built. What are the possible issues? What are the previous people have experienced? But also kind of pointing out, Jan, what if you mentioned that, have someone who has experience? What if you have a newbie realtor who wants to start to make their mark, right? But they haven't got much results to produce. But they're starting, they've got the passion, they really want to help people. But the thing that gets slammed into their face is, oh, you've only done a couple, so you're not experienced. So how do you kind of guide those newbie realtors? I mean, they're newbie in realtors, but they have a wealth of experience from the previous job or previous experiences. So how do you kind of guide these newbie realtors on, kind of like easing the mind of the buyers or the clients who they want to work with?
Well, with everybody has a broker. So Jeff is the broker for our team. And so he's the big boss. He's the one that everyone, relates to. So as we have new agents on our team, they rely heavily on us. So they'll put us in conference calls. So they'll take our experience and make sure that's given to the buyer. And really any new agent has that ability, because if they are a true sales agent, then they're working for a broker, and that broker has a lot of experience, and there's someone else in their brokerage who's probably assigned to them to mentor them, and that person has a lot of experience. So really just pulling on the experience of the brokerage and making sure that as a new agent that you're humble enough to take on that help as well as ask for it. And one of the biggest things with our new agents is we always say, if you don't know the answer, say, I don't know. That's a great question. Let me ask someone. Because I think sometimes new agents do want to overcompensate and want to feel like they're helping. And sometimes if they start saying something that may not be entirely accurate, that could be harming the client for sure.
Yep.
Absolutely. You don't want anyone who's too much, like who's too cocky, right? Who knows the answer, but give the wrong answer and impacts the relationship, impacts the sales. So you want, because it affects the trust. So coming to you then, Jeff, because you're kind of like a big boss. I mean, we do know Jan is the one running the show,
Exactly.
but like having the big boss, like, what I understand is that your team not only they don't operate like when Sean is a newbie, he goes and out there, he's not on his own because he has you and Jen to tap into the resources. Hey, I may be a newbie, but I also have this team who has done this, who has sold this, who has made this. So how do you kind of like navigate through that situation? Kind of like it's hard as a person that people rely on. You know, your shoulders can only be a certain width, right? So how do you kind of like be in the mindset of that or continue to like, do things every day to take care of the people that's in your company?
Well, I think it's important for me to maintain a mindset of being of service. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
of service to the agents that work for me as well as I'm of service to the clients that choose us to represent them in these transactions. So for me, when I come from that setup, that place of being of service, it empowers me and energizes me in a way that you know wouldn't it wouldn't if I didn't come from that mindset. And then also just on a personal note, I need to make sure that I maintain um, keeping my own, if you want to say my own cup full as far as taking care of myself on a spiritual and a physical and a mental level as well. So I've got morning routines that I put in place so that I'm as full as I can possibly be so that I can give to others. So that's kind of it's a multifaceted approach to the way I live my life so that I can, because I'm in a very fortunate position to be looked upon um, by multiple people, my children, the people that work with me, the community, as a person that they can rely on, which is fantastic. I just have to remember to keep myself in a position to be able to help them. So hopefully
Absolutely.
that answers your question.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like, being of service, because, I've always been told that there's a cause and effect, right? A lot of people that focus on the effect, which
Yes.
exhausts them. It's like, for example, the fact, oh, I'm making this amount of money. Why am I not making this money? Why this people doesn't do this? Why da 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 da? So it's exhausting. But you kind of want to shift your focus, like you were saying, Jeff, of being of service, like the cause of everything else is
Yeah.
taking care of people, being of service. Then the rest will just follow through. But obviously, to be of service, you gotta take care of yourself first. Set your boundaries, have your routine, whether it's spiritual, physical, and mental routine.
Yeah.
So Jeff, let's touch base with you a little bit. So Jen
Mhm.
has covered the buyer. So what about the seller? What are the tips that sellers can incorporate when they want to choose a realtor to help sell their home?
So I think the biggest thing for sellers is to find someone, and it's a relationship. So the biggest thing is to find someone that you can trust, and that's the single foundational piece from any relationship that I found. So once you find someone that you can trust, you also want someone that's going to have a background or at least a functioning knowledge of marketing, because that's the single biggest way we get our marketing is what drives the sales prices, the marketing and the negotiations. So someone that you can trust, that has a proven track record and that can show you, this is what I can do to market your home to get as many people to see it as possible. And then once we've got those people in and they want to purchase your home, this is what we do as far as negotiations to get you top dollar. Because in our industry, it's easy to get people in and get them, under contract, but then we forget about the negotiation part. And the negotiation part is critical in real estate because there's 26 points of negotiation throughout any transaction, which I don't believe a lot of people realize that there's that many points of negotiation. And I'm here to tell you, this woman right here is a master negotiator, far better than I will ever be. I aspire to be as good as her, but she's a master negotiator, and that's what makes us so successful. The marketing coupled with the negotiations throughout.
Absolutely. And nothing is done until not only when the ink is dry, but money in the bank. Because a lot of times things can just dropped off. And when I have experience selling my home before, everything was under contract, but it pulled out, right? So you're kind of like, then you have to manage the seller's expectation because they're already so excited, they're planning their move, they're already packing, and then everything pulls out, and it also adds financial strain, match strain, all those kind of things. So relationship is the biggest key that you mentioned before, and I think it's kind of the underlying theme. So quick tip from you before I jump into Sean. What are the best ways that realtors can build relationship with their clients? Because I find that realtors sometimes, they're not in it for the long term. They're like, oh, that person, oh, says no, done, I'm moving to the next one. Oh no, like done, moving to the next one. Whereas I think there's so much more if you truly understand the value of relationship. So what are the some of the hacks or some of your experiences in kind of like very quickly building relationship with a potential client?
Yes, I think that's a very good notice that you've had, that most realtors would use when surveyed, they would use the realtor that helped them find their home or sell their previous home, but they can't remember their name, because that realtor hasn't stayed in touch. So that's kind of the biggest, one of the biggest hacks is it's called taking care of your sphere of influence or your center of influence, your past clients. So some of the ways that we train our team to do that is to acknowledge, and we're implementing now home anniversaries, with a quick card and what's called a CMA, an update of what their home value is today, to keep being top of mind for that client. And last night I spent 30 minutes on the phone with a past client talking about painters because they unfortunately called a contractor without talking to Jeff first, and that contractor took out a load-bearing wall that he didn't realize was load-bearing. So then he called Jeff after that and went over there, and now he's calling us for painters, even, because he's not making that mistake ever again. He's getting our opinion on that. So that's one way, is making sure that we have the vendors in place for our past clients, that they can feel confident coming to us. If they need a plumber or whatever they need, we have that available to them. But as a realtor, it's really important to stay in contact. And I think the fears are, oh, well, they don't want to hear from me. Oh, I'm going to be bugging them. Oh, but it's the opposite. They spent 30 days of their life, well, longer really, because you're looking for a house. So 60 days of their life and one of the most intimate transactions they could ever have. And then you never talk to them again is not great.
Yeah, which is like kind of a bit crazy because, and especially in realtors that take them all the way through the end, right? When they're closing and then they're moving and then having the keys, that is like a huge trust because it's kind of like speed dating in a crash course because you're like, boom, and then, so then you've got kids with just the house. So it's kind of like leaving them hanging. At the very least, obviously you don't have to kind of like have parties or everything like that every month or anything like that. But just like you said, just a little bit of card, a little bit of hello, a little bit of something, just to kind of stay in touch and building that relationship. So wonderful. Thank you so much, Jen and Jeff. And I'm going to be bringing in Sean now. I'll come back to you in a moment. So, hey, Sean. So you talked about building a relationship. So it's kind of like having this theme of building relationship. What would you say that as a realtor that's going to make you confident and kind of approaching people and building the relationship or having the guts to kind of like put yourself out there, especially when you're going to be up against 4, 5, 10 maybe other realtors?
I think, as Jen and Jeff said, it's the honesty and the trust portion of it, making sure that people understand and are in a position to be able to trust you, right? And I think it goes both ways in regards to feeling comfortable with the realtor you go with and being able to have, brutally honesty conversations with them. because situations change all the time. And what you liked a week ago may not be what you like today based on other references and other properties that you've seen. So being able to have that brutal honesty and understand that things can change and it's not just you, everybody has that feeling. So I think that's a big thing in regards to the trust and the honesty in the relationship overall.
Awesome. So talk me through kind of like what the buyer can expect when they're meeting a realtor for the first time. Sean, are you on more on the buyer side or on the seller side, or are you kind of like even between those?
More on the buyer side, more on the service side for the sellers with the team overall, but more representing on buyers.
Okay, the buyer. So walk me through kind of like something that you've experienced when you're meeting a client the first time. So what are the things that a buyer can look for that's gonna have the trust trigger or building the trust as the relationship goes. Like for me, for example, when I met a realtor the first time, like, dude, like you gotta smile, okay? Because when you come in like all grumpy and kind of like, I'm like gonna be like, like what's going on with this guy? So, what are the things that realtors can do so that they can build trust with a buyer, especially on the first connection? Like when you meet the first time, you're kind of strangers, you don't know much about each other.
Yeah. So obviously the common factor between you and the buyer is the fact that they want to be in a house and you want to help them find a house, right? So that's just the underlying portion of it. I think everything else that goes into it is what's the reason they want to buy the house? What's their motivation? What do they do? Learning about them so that they feel comfortable enough to talk to you about themselves and you can open up to them as well. Obviously, it's more about them and you want to know everything you can about them and what's the motivating factor behind them and where do they see themselves in 5 years and is this a short-term plan or a long-term plan and everything else as well. So the more you can make it about them and learn about them, you can find the right situation for them and the right house for them, whether it be today, for the next 5 years, and the next 10 years. So
That's a really good tip. So it's kind of like from the buyer side, it's a realtor who is interested to know about them, right? Not just, okay, this is the home we're gonna buy, like a checklist. So that is kind of like a little bit maybe abrupt, but kind of having a conversation, just like you're meeting a friend. Hey, so what's going on? So, oh, what do you want to like really finding out about them? And I think that's going to give you the clue, and you're helping them to find the right property or the right home or the right area, or giving the clue and guiding them in the right direction of that. And I think also for sometimes you feel like great communication is when you talk the most. But I feel like sometimes great communication is when you just listen. So then, Sean, give me some heads up on the red flags for realtors. So, when as a buyer, I'm meeting a realtor for the first time, what are some red flags that I can be aware of so that I can think things through and make the right decision?
I think one of the things that you talked about was in regards to, you purchase the house and then you don't really hear about the person. And as Jen and Jeff said, you don't really remember their name. It's the transactional portion of it. So if you get that feeling that the person's just being transactional, they're going through the movements and everything, and you don't see the actual generosity or, the genuineness in them and their actions, I think that's obviously a big red flag because it's all about the relationship and, the feeling that you get. So, look inward and obviously look and see what is the feelings that you're getting from the situation because, they're probably right.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of like trust your instincts in a way, like having that feeling and having that conversation as a buyer to know what is their motivation, the realtor's motivation. Yes, of course, is to help get a home or buy a home for that particular client, but it has to go way beyond transactional. And I think like when you have a conversation with someone, you start to pick up clues that's going to guide you in making the right decisions. So, Shah, what was one of your best memories or best experience when you were helping a client?
I'm a big like proponent of children and pets and stuff like that. So being able to see, look at a property with kids and them, rushing to pick out rooms, like this is going to be my room, this is my room, and stuff like that, based on, the staging or the design. It's one of my favorite things every time, like if I could talk to the buyers through their kids, it's just so much fun seeing the joy on their face. And, as a buyer, you're looking at it as, oh, this is just the beginning of what we have to go through to get to the house and the purchase process. But, the kids just have the pure joy in it. So that's the fun part for me.
Absolutely. And I remember when I was bringing my kids around the houses, they start to pick the rooms, and I'm like, no, this is not the one. I know we have to like take them out again. But what I feel like, they get excited, right? But it's also a emotional roller coaster because they like the room. They talk about it, but that's not the home for us. It's kind of like having that. And also I feel like, Sean, one of the red flags, me personally, is I do not work with realtors who ignore my kids or ignore my husband. Like that's a big, what are they? They're like plans or something. Like I like, because it's a family, I don't know, it's not it's a family unit, right? So I do not work with realtors who ignore my kids, or ignore my husband, or ignore me, like as if we don't exist, because that is just a big no. So, all right, Sean, let's bring Jen and Jeff, and while we wrap things up with everybody, here we go. We have here the whole of Team Tackney here, which is my local realtor coming in. Okay, let's wrap up with this idea. So we're going to start with Jen and Jeff. So what is your biggest advice to buyers and also to realtors as they kind of progress along the relationship? Because the relationship may get turbulent because people get stressed out, they're not finding the home, or the transaction doesn't go through. So what's your biggest advice? And in like going through the 60 days, 90 days, sometimes a little bit longer, but in maintaining that intimacy, maintaining that relationship and connection, and actually standing shoulder to shoulder going through until the end.
So the biggest thing that comes to mind for me is crucial conversations. Have the crucial conversations on both sides, realtors and buyers. So what we've had experiences with clients where they had the courage to have a crucial conversation with us, and we were completely unaware that they felt that way. And because if they hadn't had that crucial conversation, it would have continued that false sense of harmony. So in our own personal relationship, we always make sure we're having the crucial conversation and not just letting things slide and creating that, non-intimate false sense of harmony. We want to have those crucial conversations. And as realtors, deliver the bad news as soon as you get it, because that's the hardest part of our job, is that we have to deliver bad news. We have to deliver your offer didn't get accepted. We have to deliver the appraisal came in low. We have to tell sellers the buyer backed out. The buyer wants $10,000. Delivering the good news is easy. We deliver good news too, and that's really fun and easy. But the bad news is very hard to deliver. So I think realtors procrastinate on the bad news, and that just makes it worse, because then you've gone 24 hours without telling the bad news, and it just kind of eats away. The universe, I believe that the universe really likes urgency and order, right? And so just urgently delivering news, I think, is probably, and having crucial conversations is my advice. What about you?
Yeah, and I'd like to piggyback on that, and just honesty. Be honest with each other, and that's the honesty comes through those crucial conversations. I think as a consumer, if you're honest with your consultant, your real estate agent, of what it is you're feeling, what it is you're wanting out of the transaction, that's going to help benefit the relationship. And as a real estate consultant, real estate agent, when we're honest with our clients of the expectations and the fact that it is a stressful situation, no matter which way you slice it, and when we don't know something, be honest with them and let them know we're going to find out to the best of our ability, but we don't know. It just strengthens and really forges that relationship in a foundation of trust. And so that would be my one single piece of advice: just be honest from the very get-go.
Absolutely. It's kind of helped, right? Like, I remember when I was applying to be a TEDx speaker. Oh my God, there were multiple rejections. Still, I'm like, why should I even bother doing this? Because it's rejection the same when you buyers, right? There's going to be rejections, there's going to be rejections. So kind of like managing that rejections and also be honest and not wait too long, because when you wait too long, like interest, it compounds. It becomes bigger. And now I'm a TEDx curator for TEDxHuntingtonBeach, and now I have all the applicants for the speakers. And now I'm on the other side. I have to tell these people that, oh my God, you don't get in, or you got in, and is there any second chances? No, there's no second chances, because we're, it is hard, to be in both positions. But I feel just like Jeff, you were saying, just be honest about it. It's not because you're not good enough or because of this, but it's just you were not the right fit in this moment. And the right fit or the right home will be revealed to you as a result of this rejection, which, what happened to me, I got on the right stage, TEDx stage, after the multiple rejections. So thank you for that, Jeff and Jan. And Sean, let's wrap it up with what is your one biggest advice to the buyer or to any realtor that is watching this show? Sean,
Advice.
what's your biggest advice?
That's the advice.
So the overall honesty and the relationship of the situation. So understanding that, good news, bad news, whatever it is, it's not just us communicating that to you. We're also feeling that too. This is a relationship, it's not just a transaction. So the bad news hurts us just, in the same situation that it does you. The good news is, so much more enjoyable to deliver, but it's something that we also get to feel the emotions of that too. So, we're in this with you. And, we're going to be there through the beginning and the end, through everything. So.
Absolutely. And I think like people's characters are revealed when they are in a breakdown, or when things doesn't go their way. So it's a really good kind of to see the character of your realtor when things go sideways or goes pear-shaped or literally goes flat. How do they handle it? Are they taking care of you? Are they taking care of themselves? Are they guiding you through? Are they giving up? Are they moving forward? Are they being creative? Are they being committed? Are they jumping back in? The character of a person, I feel, will be revealed in the midst of failure, in the base when you make the biggest mistake. Like Jeff, you were saying earlier, the first 6 months or so, you made like every mistake that you can think of, but it kind of showed your failure, and that's why you're able to be where you are now, because you learn on what to do, and more importantly, you learned so much more. That is, it's just a learning curve. It's just the next point. It's just a redirection to where you need to be. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for Team Tackney, Jeff, Jen, and also Sean. Let's wrap up with this. Team Tackney is one word. So we'll start with you, Jen. Team Tackney is go.
Honest.
Honest, Jeff. Team Tackney is
Service.
service. Sean, let's wrap it up and let's take it home. Team Tackney is
family/community.
Family/community. Fantastic. So thank you so much, Jeff, Jen, and Sean from Team Tackney, our local realtor here, my local realtor, for joining me today on my TV show, It Takes Courage. With me, your host, Dr. Izdihar Jamil. And remember, tell yourself, yes, I can, and so it is done. And also the importance to continuously and consistently share your voices so that you can be seen, heard, and chosen as the go-to expert in your field. All right, Team Tackney, let's say goodbye to everybody.
Bye.
Bye.